Hello everyone, my name is Aiste and I am pleased to welcome you all to one more MBSC webinar. Our today's topic is generating reports from model data. In this webinar, you will learn how to master the creation of custom report templates for Cameo Systems Modeler. Our today's speaker is my colleague at Magic, developer Edgaras Dulskis. Edgaras has been with Magic since late 2012. While contributing to the development of a model-based systems engineering environment, he has gained a lot of experience in systems and software engineering. Edgaras also provides professional services to worldwide known clients of Magic, like Abbott, Ford, Nokia, and Siemens. Producing custom report templates is one of the strongest areas of Edgaras' expertise. Besides professional services, he has delivered training courses and workshops on report templates development. Before Edgaras starts, let me tell you some generic information about the webinar. Please note that the webinar is being recorded, and all the people who have registered to the webinar will be provided with a link to the webinar's video on YouTube. This will happen next week. So if you must leave a session, keep in mind that you will be able to watch its video. Also, let me remind you that today's presentation and demo will take about 50 minutes, and the questions-answer section about 10. If you have questions, you don't need to wait for the question-answer section to ask them. You can do this during the entire session. Edgaras will answer them later on. Type your questions in the questions area you see in the current slide. Due to the limited time, some questions may be left unanswered. In such case, answers will be published later at the webinar's page in written form. So please welcome Edgaras Dulskis. Edgaras, I'm ready to start.
First of all, thank you, Aiste, for the nice introduction.
You're welcome.
And yes, I'm now ready to start the presentation. This webinar is all about report templates in MagicDraw platform. First, I will briefly explain what a template is and demonstrate how to generate actual documents from it. Then I will show you how to create your own custom report template. But in order to complete it, we will have to cover basic syntax of Velocity script, which is used to develop the templates. And finally, we will look at the ways of accessing actual model data from MagicDraw. So, what is a report template? It is a text file that describes what the output document should look like. A template contains script which gets replaced with the actual data during the generation of a document. And it also contains all the styling, headers and footers, or static text, if any. Our report generation engine supports templates of various formats, including Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint documents, HTML. You can then present such documents to business people, to users or colleagues who are not used to working with MagicDraw application. All the data formats that are stored as plain text are also supported. That includes XML, JSON, comma-separated values, and even your own custom formats. Such exported data can be imported to other tools that supports it. MagicDraw installation already comes with a number of default report templates, which you can use to generate documents. It does not matter what is the format of a template. The generation process is the same for all of them. I will shortly demonstrate how to manually generate a document out of an existing report template using Report Wizard or right-click menu. But I must mention that there also is a possibility to run a batch or shell script command. So the generation itself can be automated. For example, users work and commit data to the Teamwork Cloud during the day, and then shell script execution could be scheduled at night to produce a new version of a document and maybe place it as a resource in your internal network. I am using Cameo Systems Modeler version 18.5 to demonstrate the generation process. However, the same report generation and creation concepts that you will see here also applies to MagicDraw itself and to other MagicDraw-based products, for example, Cameo Enterprise Architecture. The currently open project is a sample requirements project, which comes with the CSM installation. To generate a report, select Tools from the main menu, and then click the Report Wizard menu item. The dialog that you see lists all the templates that are currently available for generating. Templates are grouped by category. And since we are working with requirements project, let's expand a requirements category and select requirement report. After selecting the desired template, let's go to the next wizard step, which allows us to select report data. Values of some report template variables has to be entered by the user. So report data is a configuration which holds these values, and there's always only a single configuration by default. Click the button variable to see what can be entered by the user in this step. I will not change the default configuration, but I will create a new configuration by clicking New button. Let's name it Report Webinar. Now I will set some values for the variables. I will enter my initials as the author of the document. Company name will be No Magic, and the purpose of this document will be for demonstration only. This has to be done only once, and the next time Report Wizard will remember the values for this report data. Now we can go to the next step, which is selecting scope. Scope is a part of the model in the currently open project. So only elements under the packages selected in this step will be included in the report. I will select Requirements package and then use plus sign to add it to the scope for the report. So everything you see on the right side panel is actual scope for the report. In this case, it is the contents of the package requirements. And the last step in this wizard is the output options. Clicking the button on the right allows us to select the location of a generated document. So in my case, I will place it on my desktop and name it the same as my open project. All the options, other options here are okay and not that important at the moment. So finally, I will click Generate button to create the output document. As you see, the extension is offered to be appended to the file name automatically. You can see that it takes a little while to export the diagrams and other data. The bigger the scope, the more time it could take to generate it. And printing diagrams is usually quite a time-consuming task. Once the generation task is done, we can now open our document and review the result. As you can see, all the values entered in the report wizard, like author, company, and if I scroll down a little bit, the purpose of a document, were inserted in the document. If I scroll a little bit more, I can find all the detailed information about the requirements that were included in the scope. So only the requirements in scope can be found here. You might also notice that table of contents is not displayed yet. So you have to update it manually. So I clicked this field and will press F9 to update the table of contents. This cannot be done automatically because complete document has to be generated to know the contents of it. And this page, the contents page, is generated before all the dynamic content below. As mentioned previously, there is a quicker way to generate a report. You can right-click some element in the containment tree, and that element will become the scope for the report. Then navigate to the Generate Report submenu and just pick and click the name for the template. After clicking Menu item, only Select Location dialog appears to select the output file. I will reuse the same one and override it. You can view the generated document at once. But what if the style of the contents of a default template does not suit your needs? If it's just a few small adjustments, then you might want to edit the existing template. To do that, let's get back to Report Wizard dialog. Let's make sure the correct template is selected in the tree, and then just click Open button. This action opens the template file with a script that defines how dynamic content should be inserted. If you make changes here and save the changes, then the next document you generate from this template will already be affected. You can change fonts or layout without even caring about the scripts. So now I will change the color of the title, maybe increase the font size, and I can add some spacing. And while the title page seems quite straightforward, if I scroll down a few pages below, then you will see that there is much more mystery going on. The bottom line is that creating or even editing the contents of a template is basically a programming task. So at least fundamental programming skills are required. To be able to edit this template, we first have to understand the syntax of the script. So that's why I will now spend a few minutes to get you acquainted with the Velocity script. Velocity is Java-based template engine, which allows incorporating dynamic content. The Velocity script is a template language which can reference objects defined in Java language. Since model data is represented by Oracle's Java objects in MagicDraw, so we can use methods of our own Java API. Velocity is created and developed by Apache, and detailed information, including the complete user guide, can be found online. The syntax of Velocity script is relatively simple. All variables are denoted by a $sign followed by an identifier, that is, the name of the variable. Name of the variable is case sensitive. VTL is an untyped language, so variable can reference Java object of any type. But a variable is empty until a value is set for it. We already saw when generating a report that users can set values for some template variables in Report Wizard dialog, like I did with the company name, author, and purpose. Another way is to assign the values directly in the script. For that purpose, set directive is used, as the examples in the slide display. Here, name variable is a reference to Java's string object, which is Java's way of representing any text. A floating number is assigned to the second variable, version. And after the third line, the value of name variable will be changed to the same floating number, 18.5. Next, very common directive is if statements. As in many other languages, it allows to do something only when the specified condition is true. Please pay attention that a single end directive is always required to close the block. It is mandatory. The statement might optionally include a single else directive as well as any number of else-if directives for alternative branches. Also, it is important to know that all statements that start with a hash sign will be removed from the generated documents. So if there's nothing else but script in some line, that line will not be present at all. To loop through each element in collection for each directive is used. There also must be an end to complete the block. MagicDraw report engine adds another interesting directive for row, which is not a part of original velocity script. This directive generates a new table row for each element in the collection. For Excel spreadsheet reports, it is also possible to generate columns when iterating using the for-call custom directive. Before we look into real-life examples of the script, I want to mention yet another important directive, macro. It is similar to a function. It is a segment of reusable code. When defined once, it can be called repeatedly in different places of a template. Macro command can optionally have any number of input parameters. So let's get back to the template which was opened with the intentions of editing. Now we can recognize that here is a macro defined, also that it does not print anything out because all the statements start with hash sign. It uses if statement, and if that condition in the statement is true, then another macro with this name is called. Also, a new value is assigned to the variable resolve name. But this much of script might seem overwhelming right now, so instead of analyzing and editing this template, we will create a completely new one, simple template. Just remember, each default template that comes with the installation, and there is quite a few, is a useful working example since each can be opened and viewed. To create a new template, we must first decide what the format of the document will be. Probably the most popular format is Microsoft Word document. So I will now create a new empty document which will become the template script file. And I will open it for editing. We have to add some text to it and also script to make the report dynamic. The title will be static text that never changes. I will also apply some styling for the title. Then we want something dynamic too. So let's add author variable, which should get replaced with the actual value when generating. I will add more script later on, but this script is enough to get something generated already. Make sure you save the changes before that. To create report template out of a scripted document, click New button in Report Wizard. Then the name of a new report can be entered, as well as optional description and category fields. Finally, I have to select the script file that I have just created. After clicking Create button, a new entry is visible in the templates tree. Now let's click a button variable and add new variable. We should type in author exactly as we are using it in the script, just without the $sign. The default value will be unknown. So that's it, the template is created. Now we can generate it in the same manner as we did with default ones earlier. To do that, I will create new report data, which will contain the value for the author, which in this case will be no magic. In the next step, I will select the whole project as a scope. And to do that, you have to select add the root package to the selected objects. But actually, it does not matter just yet, as we are not using scope in the script at all. Location of the output document has to be provided too. I will simply name it output. So let's generate the report, and after it's done, see what is the result. As you can see, author variable was replaced with the correct dynamic content. It is now time to pull some model data from MagicDraw project and include it in the report. So how to reach the elements that were selected as the scope in the report wizard? There are a few ways to do that. During the report generation, numerous variables are preset with the values. One of them is package scope, which automatically contains a list of package elements that were explicitly selected as the scope for the report. Furthermore, there is elements variable, which contains the same selected packages plus all the owned elements of any type recursively. So it contains every last element in the scope. Also, for every element type, a separate variable is dynamically created. And it's predefined, containing only elements of that certain type. So let's try this third approach to access the requirement elements from script. I will add a page break so our script goes not on the title page. So now we learn that, I will zoom in a little bit. Now we learn that requirement variable contains all requirement elements that are in scope. In order to generate it, we should use for each directive that we already saw. So for each our requirement in list of all requirements, and don't forget to put an end directive to close the block. Let's print name of the requirement. And let's also add numbering to see that the number gets increased automatically for each entry. So let's generate it and see if it works. But this time generating, I will use a shortcut which is dedicated for recently used reports. Luckily, we can see all the requirement names numbered and printed out. But what if we make an syntax error when typing? For example, what if we forget the end statement? Or what if we miss a closing parenthesis at the end? It is not easy to script inside Word application since it does not provide any highlighting or autocompletion for velocity. So we have to be focused. And now I will do this mistake intentionally and try to generate this report from MagicDraw. As you can see, we are getting an error. Unfortunately, the error description provided by Velocity Engine can be quite misleading. It mentions some lower sign and not the parentheses that we've missed. The line number is absolute, so it does not match Word's line of the current page and can be also misleading. I will close the error. Let's fix the script. See if it works now. It does work, but you might notice that there are empty lines. This is unwanted and unexpected. Since we haven't added such formatting, names should go one after another by looking at the script. Unwanted empty lines is a common problem. These lines appear if a space or tab character is entered after or before the script statement accidentally. From the VTL engine's perspective, a space is a normal output which cannot be ignored, so it is included in its own line if there's nothing else there. So, enable showing of paragraph marks in Word and look for trailing or leading spaces. Even if you have several statements in a row or a comment at the end of a line, there should be no spaces in between. So I will now enable paragraph marking by clicking this button in the Words toolbar. And then we can see that there is a space at the end of the for each statement. So to fix our issue with unwanted empty spaces, I will remove a space. Save a template, and this should fix our problem. And the spaces are gone. Now, what if we want to print other model properties of the requirement too, like text or severity? This can be done in a similar manner as name using the dot notation. This is actually a shorthand notation, and Java method getName is called behind the scenes. So this means the same. But I recommend using the shorthand notation, since it also resolves most stereotype tag values and derived properties. So this way you don't have to care about the implementation details to make things work. To print the value of almost any property of a model element, it is enough to follow these two simple steps. First, view the properties in the specification dialog to locate the one that interests you. Each and every property that is listed under All Properties mode is available for retrieval in the report template. Next, convert the name of the property that you see to the shorthand notation by removing the spaces and starting with a lowercase letter. Use this notation after a dot, as can be seen in the slide, to get the value of that property for the referenced element. Let's use this approach to print more model properties in our report template. So I will open the specification window of a requirement. We were able to print name of the requirement, which is an UML property. Now we will print ID, text, and maybe also refined by. They are already actually they are tagged values. You can check that by clicking tags node in the specification. So you can see these tags have slot values. Refined by is also a derived property, which means that its value is recalculated automatically when relationship changes in model. Let's put all these properties in our report template. I will use a table which has 3 columns for the properties and 2 rows. The first row is for the headers, so it's just some static text. And the script goes in the second row. But instead of using for each statement, we have to use for row statement to generate a new row in the table for each requirement. So I will change this to for row, and it ends with end row statement. Now we can access this variable in other columns of the same line too. So here we can type text to print the text, and let's also try using the rules refined by. Let's test this code and see what we get. The output is not completely as expected because the value of refined by property is not text. It is actually a list of elements, which is empty in most of the cases. If I generate it for a smaller scope, we might find some refined by with values. So here it is. So you can tell from the brackets in the output that this is a collection. So brackets means a collection, a list, or an array. And this is a list with a single element in it. So also we can check in the model that property refined by is actually a list of elements. So in the table, we would like to print name of each element if there's any. To do that, we have to use for row directive. For each directive, and iterate through each element in the refined by property value. We are not using for row because if there are multiple elements in refined by value, we want them all to be printed in the same row of this requirement. This should get us the name. I will repeat the generation process using keyboard shortcut. And now the output looks like we want it. Now we can see names of refined by elements. Also, some additional properties are available for use in script. Even if they are not present in the specification window in MagicDraw, the complete table of such additional properties can be found in our documentation. This slide includes just a few of them. Use .image to print the image of a diagram, or we can get element type in a human readable format using human type. Actually, let's add this to our template. In front of the name of the refined by elements, I will also add l.human type. And if we save and generate this, the type of the element, which is class, is also included in front of the name. One of rare situations when printing property with shorthand notation rule will not work is if tag property of a stereotype would contain spaces in its name. In such case, a specific helper method can be used. It's called get stereotype property. Report variable is quite important and used widely. It provides numerous utility methods to access and filter the model data. Here are just a few examples, and again, the full list is available in the documentation. Let's try and use a couple of the utility methods by changing our template so it prints only the requirements that are displayed in a selected single diagram. So we already know that diagram variable should contain every diagram element which is in the selected scope. So if we can assume that there will only be a single diagram in selected report scope, we need to get the first element out of this collection. To do that, we should write .get and provide 0 to get the first element. But you might have a question how to know it, why would this work? So the answer is that this would work because diagram is actually referencing Java object of type ArrayList. An ArrayList in Java has method get. But it might be difficult for you to guess that this is an array list. So there is a way to check that. So each object in Java has a method getClass. This method returns the object type of that object. And the class is an object itself. It has method getName. Using the shorthand notation, this code can be changed to .class.name. So if we will temporarily print this out, it should give us the name of the class of the referenced object. I will do it right now. As you can see, java.util.ArrayList is printed. So now you can know that this is a Java class. You can find online documentation for it, and then read all the methods that are available for calling, including .get. So let's get back to our task, to printing requirements that are displayed in a single selected diagram. So to get that single selected diagram, we use this script. And now let's set it to a variable called diagram. Notice that these variables differs only in capital D and lowercase d. As I've mentioned before, variables are case sensitive, so these are two separate variables. We got our diagram. Now we would like to get all the elements that are displayed in that diagram. So these, in case report is generated for the selected diagram. To do that, we will use report helper. So diagram elements, which means elements used displayed in the diagram, will be report helper, and we will use method called getDiagramElements. We have to provide the diagram as the parameter. So again, this method for the given diagram will return a collection of elements displayed in the diagram. But we only want to print requirements in the table. And as you can see in MagicDraw, there are other type of elements there. For example, there is a class, there is a relationship. So we have somehow to filter those diagram elements by type. We can do that using another utility method from report helper. So the requirements will be report.filterElement, and this method takes two parameters. First is the list of elements that we want to filter through, which is all the diagram elements. And the second is an array of human readable types. So since it's an array, we have to add square brackets, and inside we can enter whatever types we want to filter for, the types that we want to include. So in our case, it's requirement. It's the element type as seen in MagicDraw. If we want or need, we can place a comma and type in more types. For example, dependency, if we needed dependency relationships. But in our case, we only need the requirement. So now in the table, instead of iterating through the predefined requirement variable, which contains all the requirements in scope, in the report template scope, we will replace it with requirements which we have just collected ourselves. And to make things even more realistic, let's also print the image of a diagram above the table. This can be done by writing .image for the diagram. We haven't used if statement in our report so far. So let's say we don't want to print the table at all in case there are no requirements in the selected diagram. Maybe in that case we want to print some text, for example, nothing to display. So we have to write an if statement for these branches. So if, and I will leave the condition empty for now. So if there are no requirements, we want to print this text, else. So if there are any requirements, if the condition eval is to false, we want to print the table. And don't forget the end to close the if block. Now we might want to make the text red. For the condition to check if the requirements are empty, we could use Java's method again, like .get, but we will use another helper method from report. Report is empty. This method returns true when the collection, passed in collection, is empty. It also returns true if provided reference is null, so if there is no value at all. And if we provide a string that means text to this method, it will return true in case that text is empty. So now I will save the changes and try to generate the report template to see if it actually works. I will generate report for the open diagram and hope to see all these requirements in the table. The diagram is printed, and below, luckily, we are getting the table of the requirements in the diagram. So that works quite well. Please note that if we made some typing error, for example, we are assigning to the wrong variable, so I will mistype here. No syntax error will be displayed in MagicDraw when generating the report template. The template will still work, but it will produce wrong output. So if I generate for the broken report, now I am getting red text. So again, you have to be really careful and focused, because programming in Word is really difficult. There are also a few other helper variables like report. They are also ready to use. Project contains info about the open project. Sorter helper helps to sort elements by name, ID, or other text property. Date is for printing the date and time in any chosen format. Array provides a way to create a new empty list set or set, since there is no way to construct new Java objects in Velocity itself. There are even more helper variables like file, which is able to create additional output files. Let's try out date helper by printing the current date in the header of our report template. So I will double click the header to edit it. When we'll type in date helper and use its get method, we have to provide the date format. So it will be year, month, and day of month. Let's check what output we get. And the date is included in the header of each page. So that's what we have expected. If the API provided by us is not enough, you can create your own report tool with Java. Complex sorting algorithm or advanced string manipulation using regular expressions might not be available in Velocity, so custom Java code can be written in such cases. jar file containing the implemented tool class has to be placed in a subdirectory next to report templates files. Finally, the new helper class, the new helper has to be imported using import directive before it can be used in the Velocity script. So after the development of our template is complete, we might want to share it to our colleagues, clients, or users. In the report wizard, we can use export button to export template to a file, which can then be sent to others. And then the given file can be imported using the report wizard's import button on their machine. Also, if the users are working on the same project, the template can be attached to the project itself using attach button. If I attach this to the project, it will create a copy, and you also can see that there is an element representing this report template. So you can commit this to the Teamwork server, for example, and other users will start seeing it in report wizard. If I delete the attached template in the model, it will also be gone from the report wizard. There is no attached report, only the copy which is stored in file. So I have only showed you how to create a new report for Microsoft Word. So what if Excel or XML based report is needed? Actually, the process is almost identical to the one that we've tried here. Start with creating a file with the desired extension and then just put script in it. Let's say we need to export block elements as vocabulary resources using the resource description framework, that is RDF format, which is based on XML. To do that, simply create a template file with the RDF extension and then using any text or code editor, add script that creates content dynamically. The script might look as simple as shown. So this script iterates through each block in the selected scope, then it prints its name, documentation, properties. Also, it uses some custom imported tool which does not exist in my system, and a method of the tool should replace the white spaces from the name of the block. To conclude, I would like to say that report template development topic is very broad, but the same can be said about the possibilities. This process requires some knowledge and practice to master. I encourage you to start at our tutorial section and try things for your own, and then consult the user guide for the available data retrieval methods. Please also remember that every existing report template is also a working script example. So thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Edgaras, for the presentation and the demonstration. It was very interesting. And currently I can see that we have no questions. Just many thanks for presentation and questions. If we will provide the slide deck and the video to the attendees. So I can repeat once more that yes, we will provide you with all related information in a week of time. And right now we can say thanks once again, and we hope to see you in upcoming webinars, and goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.